Hello, I'm going to install my first Windows VM on my virtualization server today. I'm going for Windows 7 because hopefully it's still got some life left in it and it's lighter, so it'll be easier to experiment with. The virtualization server is the Ubuntu server I created in my last video. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Let's skip the whys and recap on what code was run by running it all again. I hesitated to repeat these commands because they would change my existing installation. I can waffle whilst Windows installs. I'm running all the code again, not Control-C'ing like a wuss. I've gone ahead and installed xrdp, that's RDP for Linux. I couldn't get my Windows guest to install without control from a GUI. Script automation will be possible, but I don't have time to research that for the 1 or 2 Windows VMs I might ever need. I've already installed the Debian desktop on this, as shown in my last video. When I installed it, this server was headless, a text-only Ubuntu server. The desktop needs desktop software, the server doesn't, but it helps. I'm logging into the remote desktop. These are the images I've collected under var-lib libvirt images. At the bottom is the Windows ISO I will fingerprint, which might take a while. Also present are the virtio ISOs. I obtained these earlier from fedorapeople.org, which is basically Red Hat. This is the command to install from the command line. I really had hoped to be able to show Windows VM creation from shell only. Desktop OSs need the care and attention of pets, not cattle. Still, any infra's code is better than none at all. Wow, dragging the guest around is lagging. Watching that back is a bit of a relief. I'd assume the lag was with the Windows virtualization, but looking at it now, we don't have virtualization here. This lag is the remote desktop lag. I've run this installation process offline before. It takes ages. As I recall, this part of installing Windows to spinning Rust at least always took about half an hour. Why did I use Windows 7? Well, it's modern enough to still be usable, and I want to see what programs support that hypothesis. Virtualizing any Windows is an achievement. The first step is always the hardest. Let's try not get too concerned with hypotheticals.
At 29 and I find myself wondering what did happen to the last 10. I ran away with my life, fast forward, never turn back again. It's kind of funny that the more we pass time, the more we need to say.
So you can get an idea of how long installation took. Remember the clock read 13:47 when it began the unattended routines. We don't yet have internet though. Look how easy expanding the desktop is. No virtio drivers are required for that. Let's get the latest virtio drivers installed. There's an executable in the root of the ISO. It tells me to use at least Windows 8 or Windows Server 2012. Let's see what other options I have. It's a big ISO, but right now I only need a network driver. I know where that is, and give the path to Windows to search for drivers. For the remaining other devices, I don't know what they are by looking at them. I give Windows the root, D, of the disk, and it finds bubble and serial drivers. serial driver is a disk driver. For the remaining other devices, I don't know what they are by looking at them. I give Windows the root D of the disk and it finds bubble and serial drivers. I'm guessing the serial is a serial ATA driver, but I can't really be sure just by looking at it. All I could do is look up what the names of all those folders on the disk mean and install them individually. I'm not so fussed about performance yet. I don't want to be updating perfectly working drivers. So the bubble one is a dynamic memory. These should make things faster. SSH connections always lag a little, RDP a little more. Using a keyboard with this kind of lag is fine. Using a mouse requires visual feedback and is frustrating. I reboot to see what difference the new drivers made. Very little. As a desktop, it is usable. How much software still runs on Windows 7? I can summarise my findings quickly enough. Internet Explorer is in the right state. Firefox is saying I'm no longer supported, but it's referred me to an ESR extended support release. I can't tell if the ESR itself is unsupported, or if they were warning me off the regular main branch. ESR proves usable, but clearly Firefox want to forget about supporting Windows 7. In terms of code base, you probably can't get much bigger than Visual Studio, so I start looking for a Visual Studio code and I find that it doesn't support Windows 7. PyCharm 23 doesn't support Windows 7, but 2020 does. Python 3.11 doesn't, Python 7, or 3.7 rather, does. Current versions of Teams, LibreOffice, 7-zip and Git for Windows all work fine. The programs of greatest value, like the browsers, don't want to waste resources on Windows 7, so nor will I. Smaller toy OSs had a place before we had smaller toy dev boards and phones.